Parts of Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming are now closed to the public as a dangerous fissure has opened. Teton is a portion of the greater Yellowstone National Park where North America's super volcano sits. Manila Chan is following this story, and from what I know of it, this goes beyond any natural disaster movie we've ever seen, potentially.
Well, what is scarier than real life, Holland? It's the height of tourist season, as you know, right now at Yellowstone National Park, so you can imagine a ton of disappointed visitors this week. But there's this 100-foot horizontal crack along a rock wall at Grand Teton. It emerged recently, and park officials fear it may be connected to the supervolcano located nearby. Now, Park Superintendent David Vela said this. He said, quote, "Human safety is our #1 priority, and with an abundance of caution, we are temporarily closing this area until we can properly assess the situation." Experts say this fissure poses a number of dangers to humans in the area. Fears it may continue to crack, possibly create a rock slide, just to name a few, due to the very active grounds there at Yellowstone. The national park sits on a very active magma chamber connected to that supervolcano. Now, the volcano, though, has not erupted in over 600,000 years, but they say if it did erupt, would result in a nuclear winter, blocking out sunlight and showering thousands of miles in volcanic ash. It would immediately kill about 87,000 people and render about 2/3 of the United States completely uninhabitable. Now, geologists across the globe are carefully monitoring this, as well as other volcanoes that have been erupting, with the recent eruptions in Hawaii, sending hundreds fleeing for safety there. Many Americans wonder if or when the next Mount St. Helens style eruption may occur. A little bit of history for you. Mount St. Helens erupted in 1980 in Washington state. It sent ash and debris more than 80,000 feet up into the air and into the surrounding areas. That killed about 60 people. There were rock slides immediately, and later created the largest landslide ever recorded due to high pressure gas and steam under the earth. Now, that eruption, it was preceded by a series of earthquakes for the next 2 months and numerous steam venting episodes all across that area. But fear not, scientists say that this crack or fissure may not be a prelude to an eruption or mass extinction just yet. Now, Holland, they say cracks to rock face happen all the time with the tectonic plates shifting, said that backwards. And park officials just need some time to conduct some risk assessment, make sure that it's okay for visitors to go back and, not be injured by possibly falling rocks. And the tourists should be back there hopefully pretty soon, Holland.
So glass half full, it hasn't happened in 600,000 years.
Yes.
Why would it happen now? Glass half empty, maybe we're overdue.
We might be. The earth has to do something with that pressure.
Thank you, Manila Chan.
Yellowstone. Latest updates. Ladies and gentlemen, Rex Bear Leak Project. How the heck are you? It feels fantastic here in the mobile studio without air conditioning. It's about 133 degrees. Oh yeah. And I want to share with you the latest mainstream news articles on Yellowstone and the fissure south of Yellowstone, because I was called a conspiracy theorist because the mainstream news hadn't covered yet this information. So read all about it. The mainstream news is covering it right now. Fox News, Daily Mail, Daily Express, multiple local. Wow, it's getting warm in here. Dangerous fissure opens near Yellowstone supervolcano. The latest news and information. Read all about it. Yellowstone massive geyser keeps on erupting. CNN.com. If you just type in Hidden Falls, you can go directly to nps.gov, and they're going to share with you the information that was released on the 10th. So we're talking 8 days ago of an indefinite closure. Now, 8 days ago, they said, look, we noticed this thing grow overnight, so we had to close it down because we don't want anyone to get hurt. That's very smart. And it could just be swamp gas from Yellowstone. And it could be the earth is expanding, and it could be just totally normal. And it could be all of the above. So you can see here, woodtv.com, Fox News, read all about it. I just want to give you an idea. If you go to Google Maps, if you haven't been there yet, this will show you that you can drive to Hidden Falls from Yellowstone National Park in less than an hour. Beautiful drive. Definitely recommend doing it. I also want to share with you updates on Kilauea, on the volcano status in Alaska, and the alert levels for 3 volcanoes in the U.S. the Great Sitkin, yellow alert. Kilauea, orange alert. Cleveland, orange alert. Also, this is the latest update on Kilauea. Fissure 8 is still active. And if you go down closer towards the ocean entry is a hazardous area. And my name's Captain Obvious. I'm sweating in the mobile studio to conspiracies about volcanoes and expanding Earth. This right here is a image from the Puna Geothermal Venture Cam. You can see the devastation of Kilauea. And you can also, I'm going to update this and see if we can get the latest image. I just thought it was interesting because you can see the magma, the lava. This right here, you can clearly see, this is updated. This is 11 minutes old. This image right here is 11 minutes old. You can see the volcano still spewing lava. The devastation around the plant is pretty significant. Now, the good news is, there is good news to this. There is new beachfront property in Hawaii. The question is, who gets first dibs? Well, I think we know the answer to that one. There's actually a news article about that. That's pretty intense, though. That looks pretty intense out there. I mean, if you think it's hot where you're at, for a moment I thought, yeah, it's pretty warm in here, but nothing compared to the devastation of a volcano. And I just got to get the Charlie Frost archetype going before the destruction so it can be turned around and so it doesn't happen. It's just a literal frequency manipulation technique, and tweak it a little bit, go back into time, and manipulate that situation where they create some vents down the road to where the supervolcano doesn't erupt the way that it does. It would just be like a very slow, monotonous, continue to release bits and pieces, not just enormous amounts at once. So stay with me here. Now, this right here is going to show you the latest thermal map of the fissure system and the lava flows. You can see right here, definitely some action to look at there. I mean, that's pretty serious. It's pretty serious. Now, Kilauea is nothing in comparison to Yellowstone. Let's go here. This is the updated map showing the lava hot zones. And you can see, I find this interesting because if you look around the Puna Geothermal Venture, the plant here, this area, it's like they must have done something to divert the lava around it. The engineers must have done a good job there because you can see it's clearly, at least what they're showing us here. Now, last I heard, and they're not reporting on this much anymore, folks, there was at least 2 wells that were completely covered in lava. The good news is they created the appropriate measures to block any more catastrophic damage at the plant or any of the lava getting inside of those wells. Now, if that's still good or valid, I don't know, because I can't find any information on it. It seems like they've really quieted it down. This right here is the latest information on how many volcanoes there's been in Hawaii, and whew, man, it's getting warm in here. Gotta love it. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, if you're wondering why I look a little bit warm, looks like I'm sweating, it's not because I'm scared. It's because I'm excited. Halo! Halo! My Patriot Supply. Check it out. 2 weeks worth of food, 67 bucks. Are you serious or are you from Sirius? There you go. Seriously, 67 bucks for 2 weeks worth of food? Oh yeah. I just ordered 2 more sets, so I've got like another 140 mils coming in the mill. I'm stacked. All right, so this is the earthquake data. Zoom in on this real quick. It's uploading. The Wi-Fi is kind of slow. When it gets this warm, I think it interacts with the Wi-Fi. Probably not. It's just slow internet connection. Earthquake activity, while this is loading up, we'll go back and look at the map here. Man, it's being slow today. Like, assimilation, assimilate. Boom, bada bing, still loading data. All right, forget you, you're too slow, man. Big project, we're ready to go. We want the data now. Thermal map of fissure system and lava flows, you can see right here. And there you have it. The information is right there. Cleveland, not Cleveland, Ohio, Cleveland, Alaska. Go back here, look one more time. Where's that? Okay, current alerts. Elevated alert, Kilauea and Cleveland. Now, Cleveland's out there in a string of islands off the coast of Alaska. And if you were to compare that and just get a ruler and point it from that location to Hawaii, to Kilauea, it's interesting the proximity of where it is. And it makes me think of the expanding Earth because of the way that it's curved a little bit and it's coming out. It's like the Earth is expanding, and these areas around certain fault zones and these volcanoes are becoming more active. Now, it'd be neat if we had a geologist on the show that wasn't succumbed to any, like, big brother data sets where they had to say certain things and couldn't talk about certain things because of the funding that they were getting for the research. And it'd be interesting to see if there's some comparisons that they could do with Antarctica, with Greenland. There's a lot of activity in Greenland right now that we're not hearing much about, except for some of the glaciers that are breaking off. Like I'm sure you heard recently about that glacier that is the biggest one these Greenlanders have ever seen off the coast. And they're nervous. Some of them had to be evacuated because if this thing capsizes, it could get gnarly really quick. I mean, it's humongous. So, and there's a lot of data about Antarctica and the ice sheets and how they're melting at a exponent, they're melting faster than has been recorded before. But at the same time, there's other areas around that are in the proximity. South Pole, is that right? South Pole, South Pole, Greenland's North Pole. Okay, I can't wait to hear the comments in the comment section. So in the South Pole, there's areas that are rapidly melting, and then it's just like the ice is growing back. It's coming back just as fast. So expand and contract. The Earth is getting extremely hot and extremely cold. The magnetosphere is definitely weakening. That's been proven. So with all of these combinations, and tomorrow we're going to have all of the planets, the major planets, aligned on one side of the sun, this is a recipe for global opportunities. There you have it.
Ladies and gentlemen, doom has been diverted. The mainstream news has come out and officially said the fissure at Grand Teton is completely unrelated to the Yellowstone supervolcano. And this is according to a park official. Read all about it at the Epoch Times. The day before, they were conspiracy theorists because they had an article titled Yellowstone Grand Teton National Park partially closed after large fissure opens. And you know who else is a conspiracy theorist? Another mainstream news corporation, total conspiracy theorist. Read all about it. New York Post. You can also read about this on Yahoo. Massive fissure opens atop Yellowstone supervolcano. The good news is President Trump has made a deal with the Russians, and the supervolcano has now decided to calm down. They have diverted doom for at least another 100 days, or until the buck stops and they have to sign more debt to keep the government running. And this is good news. I feel really excited now that Snopes has written an article about this, saying that it's not related at all. I'm really excited that the Epoch Times came out and said, hey, we talked to an official. The official said there's nothing at all to do with this. It happens all the time. It's totally normal. I'm so glad that that mile-long crack in Arizona is totally normal. How about the mile-long crack in Kenya, right? What is it? Kenya crack. Let's put this in. Kenya crack opens up. Kenya fissure. Let's see what it says. A giant crack in Kenya opens up. But what's causing it? CBS News. Read all about it. Another massive crack opens up in Kenya. Huge crack opens up in Kenya's Rift Valley. BBC News. They must be conspiracy theorists. Now, what about the one in Arizona? Like the Arizona desert. Arizona desert crack opens up. Have you had any crack lately in Arizona? There's a really big one out there. It's called Splitsville. It's a 2-mile-long crack, and it's in the Arizona desert. Livescience.com. Read all about it. Conspiracy theorists, they're a bunch of conspiracy theorists, ladies and gentlemen, because the Earth isn't even real. It was made in a NASA basement, just like outer space. Read through the comments. Literally. I was schooled the other day. Someone said, Rex, you do not have an open mind. NASA made outer space in a basement. So I guess I'm looking at something in a basement somewhere hooked up in a virtual reality headset that NASA made. I mean, wow. That's pretty impressive. So I'm just saying. An enormous crack just opened up in the middle of the Arizona desert, Forbes.com, conspiracy theorists. Now, let's look at how many volcanoes right now are active. Volcano activity, U.S., it's 3. Cleveland, Kilauea, and there's another one out there. Oops, I misspelled activity. There are 3 currently. Go to usgs.gov. Let's take a look at the latest reports. There's 2 orange and 1 yellow. Orange Kilauea, orange Cleveland, and then the yellow one is, here we go, Sitkin. So, unrest. And how about why? You know, I mean, you're just out there, you're fishing, you're having a good time, and then all of a sudden, boom! Lava bomb. Jeez, it's intense out there. Now, I am working on becoming a lava scout, right? Going out and scouting for the next volcano. So I'm just warming up here in the garage. You know, it's about 111 degrees right now. And really, it's going to go from extreme heat to extreme cold. A couple more days here in Grandma's garage in San Antonio. And then the bunker in southern Colorado. So going from extreme heat to extreme cold, average of about 10 feet per year of snow. And that's another thing I want to talk to you about. Tell me if this isn't bizarre. And this is totally normal too, I'm sure. So, all right, let me turn this off here. Bing! People are like, Rex, are you packing up for the apocalypse? Yes. But I've been doing that for years, so that's nothing new. Last year, southern Colorado. There's a town in southern Colorado that averages over 10 feet of snow per year. Last year, they didn't get any. What? Think about that. Average snowfall, over 10 feet, and then nothing. Oh yeah, and let's not forget about all of the trees that are dying at higher elevations in southern Colorado as well from this beetle kill. Let's definitely not think about all of the fracking that is going on, especially in places like Wink and Kermit, Texas. Let's completely forget about the fracking that's going on in Kermit and Wink, Texas. The sinkholes that are literally growing to where they're having to fence off areas that are endangering and approaching the towns closest to them. You drive out there, and in seconds, you can. It's like you can easily get sick. Are used to it. I don't know how people deal with it because you can certainly smell it. If you're there for long periods of time, there's even areas that say this is not safe. I mean, the planet is really, with all of these fracking sites, if the Earth expands in that area to where there's going to be huge cracks and earthquakes, imagine the toxins that could be released around these wells and how long the effects will be. I certainly see there needing to be more cleanup crews in place and more corporate oversight to watch out for natural disasters and catastrophes that could cause long-term issues with the ecosystem of our planet. Would you agree or disagree? Even if you're in the oil industry, I'm sure you can agree with that because you're going to want to work in an environment where you're healthy and you're not absorbing all that nastiness. It's like Big Brother cares more about the persona of caring than actually caring, if you think about it. Oh yes, you need to wear your seatbelt. Otherwise, if you get in a car wreck, you could fly out of the car. So if you don't wear your seatbelt, we catch you, we're going to give you a ticket because we care about you. But it's okay for these corporations to put carcinogens or what have been linked to carcinogens in products because it's just a little bit and it's been approved by these 3-letter agencies that say it's okay and they have our best interest in their minds. They have our best interest because they care about us. Their consciousness, their conscience, their morals and values. They care about us. They love us so much. Thank you everybody for watching. Marshall Masters is going to be on in less than an hour. We're going to talk about the Colburn Bible, and he is one of the experts, one of the leading experts in the Colburn Bible. All of the information, these scriptures that have been compiled over various timelines and cultures. He has compiled it in a very easy to read set of scriptures called the Colburn Bible. And he's going to be on at 8 p.m. Central, live. We're going to talk about the nature of God, the Colburn Bible. Be excellent to each other, everybody. Thank you once again so much for your support. And also, just to let you know, there are some incredible deals right now at My Patriot Supply. 70 meals for $67. That's 2 weeks worth of food. Breakfasts, lunches, dinners, snacks, and drinks for $67. Also, organic seeds, water filtration systems, exclusive deals specifically for Leap Project listeners. It's always better to be prepared than to be in need, in my opinion.
Honorable Paul Hellyer, former Minister of Defense of Canada, and he believes that life forms from space exist and are present on Earth. It's great to have you with us on our show. Why do you say that UFOs are as real as the airplanes flying over our heads?
Well, because I know that they are. They've been, as a matter of fact, they've been visiting our planet for thousands of years. And one of the cases that would interest you most, if you give me 2 or 3 minutes to answer, is during the Cold War, 1961, there were about 50 UFOs in formation flying south from Russia to across Europe. And the Supreme Allied Commander was very concerned and about ready to press the panic button when they turned around and went back over the North Pole. So they decided to do an investigation, and they investigated for 3 years, and they decided that with absolute certainty that 4 different species at least, had been visiting this planet for thousands of years. So that's, we have a long history of UFOs, and of course there's been a lot more activity in the last few decades since we invented the atomic bomb, and they're very concerned about that and the fact that we might use it again. And because the whole cosmos is a unity, and it affects not just us, but other people in the cosmos, they're very much afraid that we might be stupid enough to start using atomic weapons again, and this would be very bad for us and for them as well.
So no serious scientist has ever publicly confirmed evidence of an encounter with extraterrestrials. Why would scientists not confirm the facts if they exist?
I'm afraid they must go out of their way not to find out. Because if they did, you know, even 10% of the amount of research I've done in the last 8 years, they would be as convinced as I am. I mean, they could do it even faster. Might take them a little longer when they didn't have a military background. But there are so many wonderful books that tell these stories, and they've been authenticated. The sightings have been authenticated by more than one witness, and also by radar. And they have landed in various places around the world, including Russia. There's a famous case there. I can't remember the name of the place, but it was widely reported at the time. A man wrote a book about it, and then the French bought the book rights so that it wouldn't be circulated around. There's just so much evidence. If anybody will take the time off to do a little bit of research and study. But people just are, you know, some people are interested and will take the time, and the others just say, oh, you know, it's just fantasy. Mm-hmm. But since I've been public on this subject, I get, probably 3 or 4 emails a week from all over the world, from people who have actually witnessed sightings. And some of them who have actually been on the ships, and some of them who have actually been transported to another planet. And so this information is not, you know, it is top secret in a way that the governments aren't talking about it. But if you listen to the whistleblowers and the people who have worked in the industry and who know what is going on, there is just a lot of information out there, and it doesn't take very long to get your hands on it.
But see, the problem is that some people who report UFO sightings and alien abductions have been shown to make things up, and to make things up to be famous, to make money, or just for a prank. How do we tell fiction from a fact?
Well, you have to spend a lot of time trying to find, we used to say, separating the wheat from the chaff, and it takes a lot of effort. When I was minister, I got sighting reports, and when we checked them out, about 80%, about 8 out of 10, were were not real. There were sites of Venus or plasma or, you know, a dozen other things, but there were 15 or 20% for which there was no explanation, and they were the genuine unidentified flying objects. These things go way back. One of the conferences I went to was in Las Vegas, was promoted by a chap who had written a book about crashes. And there were dozens and dozens and dozens of them, and many of them very, very well authenticated, so that it would be impossible to read all of that evidence and not to come to the conclusion that these vehicles were real.
Have you ever had your own encounter with aliens?
Not an encounter with aliens, no. I have seen a UFO about 120 miles north of Toronto over Lake Muskoka, where I have a cottage. And 2 years ago, last Canadian Thanksgiving, which is October, my wife decided she wanted to go out and look at the stars. So I'm not much of a night man, but I put on my cap and went out with her. And she looked into the eastern sky and said, "There's a star." And I turned around the other way and I said, "Oh, there's a much brighter one over here." And she looked, and it was. And we watched it until our necks almost broke for about 20 minutes. And it was definitely a UFO, because it could change position in the sky by 3 or 4 degrees in 3 or 4 seconds. And I checked out, there were no satellites that could do that. The space station wasn't going by, and it isn't able to move that fast anyway. And there was nothing, no other explanation except that it was the real thing. And 2 days later, I went down on the dock, got a comfortable chair, and watched it came back almost to the same spot and entertained me for as long as I could take it. And then I went back to the cottage. But it was very interesting, because it would drop down in the sky, and then it would roar back up, and then it would shift across a few degrees and do a circle and come back at a speed which, you know, just astronomical speeds. As you know, they travel very, very fast.
So does it just look like a falling star that falls really quickly and then rises again? What does it look like?
Well, it just looked like a star.
It just looks like a star. Right.
And I don't know if you're a person who has ever read the Bible or not, but I think the Star of Bethlehem is one of God's flying saucers.
Mm-hmm. But you also tell me that people write you emails, 3 to 5 emails a week, and they've actually been abducted, or they have encounters with the aliens. Do they actually tell you what these aliens look like? I mean, you know, everyone's interested. How would I know if I see an alien and if he abducts me?
Well, the first question you have to ask is, how many species are there? And I used to think there were, you know, between 2 and 12. And Apollo astronaut Edgar Mitchell, who came to Toronto a few years ago and had dinner with us, agreed there was somewhere between 2 and 12. But the latest reports that I've been getting from various sources are that there are about 80 different species. And some of them look just like us, and they could walk down the street and you wouldn't know if you ran, you know, walked past one. And they're what we call the Nordic blondes, and also the tall whites, who are actually working with the United States Air Force in Nevada. They're able to get away with that. They had a couple of their ladies dressed as nuns went into Las Vegas to shop, and they weren't detected. And I have a friend who saw one of the men walking along the street, and somebody who would recognize that they were different, and he did. So there are those kind, and then there are the short grays, as they're called, and they're the ones that you see in most of the cartoons. They have very, very slim arms and legs, and they're very short, just you know, a little over 5 feet, and they have a great big torso and a great big head and great big brown eyes. But they're different species, so you have to know that they're different species, and it's and know that they're all different. Mm-hmm. So if you saw the short gray, if you saw the short grays, you'd certainly know that there was something up that you'd never seen before. But if you saw one of the Nordic blondes, well, you'd probably say, "Oh, I wonder if she's from Denmark or somewhere," you know.
So these species that you're describing, are they all different in terms of nice and mean? Are some of them nice and benevolent? Are others nasty? Or how are they? Are they good to people on Earth, or are they here to harm them?
Well, it's a difficult question to answer because they have different agendas. And maybe all of us on Earth should have the same agenda, but you couldn't say maybe that Russia and China and the United States all had the same agenda at every turn, because they don't. And I would say that nearly all are benign, they're benevolent, they want to help us. There may be one or two species which do not. And that's one of the things I'm investigating at the moment, is to see who they are and what they're up to and what their agendas really are.
All right, we're talking to Paul Hellyer, former Canadian Minister of Defense, who says extraterrestrial life forms exist and are present on Earth. We'll talk more about what they are and why they're here after a short break. Stay with us. And we're back with Paul Hellyer, former Canadian Minister of Defense, to talk about extraterrestrial life forms. Great to have you back. So these extraterrestrial creatures, where did they come from and how did they get here to Earth? They come from
various places. For a long while, I only knew about ones who came from different star systems. The Pleiades and Reta Reticula and several other star systems, but in the last few months I have met people who have made me aware of that there are some in our star system, and that there are actually extraterrestrials who live on a planet called Andromeda, which is one of the moons of Saturn, and that there are others on Venus and some on Mars, and that they may be interacting between themselves. I suspect that they are, because there is what is called a federation of these people, and they have rules. For example, one of the rules is that they don't interfere in our affairs unless they're invited to. And that's one of the reasons probably that we haven't seen more of them until very recently. And so
but what do you mean? There are a lot of people who want to interact with them. There are a lot of people who actually want to see them and know who they are. What, they need a special invitation to interact with us? What does it mean? They don't want to interfere into our affairs.
Well, they don't want to tell us how to run our affairs. They have accepted the fact this is our planet, and that we have the right to run it, but they're very, very concerned. They don't think we're good stewards of our planet. We're not. We're clear-cutting our forests, and we're polluting our rivers and our lakes, and we're dumping sewage in the oceans, and we're doing all sorts of things which are not what good stewards of their homes should be doing, and they don't like that, and they've made it very clear. And as a matter of fact, they have given us a warning.
How?
And this has come from more than one source.
How have they made it clear? What have they done?
They have talked to people. One of the chaps I talked to about a month ago was interacting with them in 1974, he and his brother, in Peru. And they were taken to Andromeda, teleported. And they were told what the people there think, and that we're really wrecking our planet, and in fact that something dreadful is going to happen to it if we don't smarten up and change our ways. We spend too much time fighting each other, we spend too much money on military expenditures, and not enough on feeding the poor and looking after the homeless and the sick, and that we are polluting our waters and our air, and that we're playing around with these exotic weapons, thermonuclear weapons and atomic weapons, which have such a devastating effect both on our Earth and on other areas in the cosmos, and they don't like that. And that's the reason they would like to work with us to teach us better ways, but only, I think, with our consent. And they work through individuals, and they try and pick out individuals who won't be frightened to death of them, because they can give you quite a fright. One of the cases I'm familiar with was the tall whites in Nevada, where the United States airmen working with them, were just frightened to death of them. And one, Charles Hall, rescued the daughter of one of the high-up people in the Tall Whites, and as a result became very good friends with the mother. And as soon as they could trust each other, they had a wonderful relationship. And he wrote a book about it. It's called Millennial Hospitality. Millennial Hospitality. And it tells you how you go through these stages of being scared out of your wits. But then when you establish a trust and a working relationship, why you can have the same relationship, same kind of relationship that you would have with someone here on Earth.
But here's what I'm thinking. If you're outing their presence, which is clearly not what they want since they're hiding, why aren't they so afraid of, why aren't you afraid of repercussions? Because you're obviously stating that they're here among us, and you're telling me all these species that exist.
They are here among us, and I'm not afraid because in most cases, well, as far as technology is concerned, they're light years ahead of us, and we have learned a lot of things from them. A lot of the things that we use today, we got from them, you know, lead lights and microchips and Kevlar vests and all sorts of things that we got from their technology, and we could get a lot more too, especially in the fields of medicine and agriculture, if we would go about it peacefully. But I think maybe some of our people are more interested in getting their military technology, and I think that's wrong. I think that's wrong-headed, and that's one of the things that we're going to have to change, because we're going to have to work together.
Talking about
all of us, everywhere on the planet.
You've mentioned military technology and swapping technologies and barters between aliens and people in American government. I want to ask you, as a former Minister of Defense of Canada, is interstellar war a possibility? Should we be creating a Star Wars force to defend ourselves from possible invasion or something like that?
Well, I think it's a possibility, but it's a possibility especially if we shoot down every UFO that comes in our airspace without asking who they are or what they want. And right from the beginning, we started scrambling planes and trying to shoot them down, but their technology was superior enough that we weren't able to get away with it. Certainly not for a long while. And during that period of time, they could have taken us over without any trouble if they'd wanted to. So I think we have to, rather than develop our own Star Wars, Earth Star Wars, to protect ourselves against them, that we should work with the benign species, who are the vast majority, and work together and rely largely on them, of course, and cooperate so that we would be contributing something at the same time. But I don't think there's any point in us developing a galactic force that would tempt us to go out on our own and get into mischief, which is one of the things I think some of them are concerned about.
But what do you expect to happen if people start to believe in alien existence on Earth? Because things are definitely going to change. Our lives aren't going to be the same anymore.
Well, I hope that's the case. I hope that's the case, and I'm all for full disclosure. And I'm going to push very hard for full disclosure in the book I'm writing, and to give some reasons for it, things that we really have to know and have a right to know, and that our future as a species, and here I mean, you know, all of the species in the world, are potentially at risk if we don't figure out what's going on and work together to try and make life more amenable for all of us.
But it's
and to work with our neighbors from other planets as well.
But still, like, I'm thinking to myself, if they've been here for such a long time, as you say, and they're interested in helping humanity, as you say, why is our world such a mess? I mean, if you want to help someone, you just help someone. You don't wait for someone to invite you to help that someone, no?
Well, I don't, you know, it's something that I think parents can sometimes say to their children, this is what you should do. But that doesn't mean the children are going to do it, does it? Because the cosmos is based on free choice. And we're given the option of making mistakes, of making wrong choices. And I guess what bothers some of us is we've made too many wrong choices and not enough right choices. So we're going to have to start switching our priorities and stop spending so much time and effort and weapons to kill each other or to dominate each other, and spending a lot more time on how to help each other to have a better life and a more just society, and a life which is healthier and where the health care is better, and where the food distribution is better, and where the air is cleaner and the water is cleaner, and all of those things that are waiting to be done if we just get together and row, as we say, rowboat, row in the right direction, the same direction. And it's possible, but it's a tall order, and so far we haven't done it. My thesis will be that we have to do it, and we have to start doing it right away.